Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
We're going streaking!
Dave's Video Graveyard.
That guy in a little coat.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
I'm not a smart man.
Shut up!
One tubby.
What's wrong with him?
My first thought would be alive.
Why so serious?
Wise man say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Hail to the king, baby.
Hey, Ma! The meatloaf! We want it now! The meatloaf!
Of all the radio shows in the world, this is definitely one of them. Dave's Video Graveyard on 100.5 WOW FM.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
It is 100.5 WOW FM, Dave's Video Graveyard for your Monday night. An absolute pleasure to be with you, whatever you may be doing. I'm sure you're freezing just like I am, as the very old man I am. This evening, it is time once again for a guest choice special, and we are joined by the ever-interesting model / cosplayer / makeup artist / Jill of all trades. We are joined by Villain Visage. How are you doing?
Good. I can't believe I'm here. Little nervous, little excited. Yeah.
Do you mean a lot excited and
So
a little
excited.
nervous?
I have no idea how the radio works. This is all very interesting.
Well, everything you say goes out to everyone you've ever hated.
No,
so
don't
make
say
sure you keep that in mind as you say everything. Thank you so much for joining us. For those who don't know, give us a little background. Who are you?
Oh God, isn't that the question?
Existential crisis on
I'm
air.
just gonna have a crisis now. So primarily I'm a cosplayer. I'm also studying costume, a Bachelor of Costume at university. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Sounds sad when it's that short.
Now, you have, even though it's in one part of the spectrum, I guess you'd say, you have a very varied film choice this evening. Like, it's really all over the place.
I was a little worried it was too horror focused, but I felt like if I expanded out towards more genres, I would have way too difficult of a time choosing. This was like picking a name for your first child. I couldn't decide.
Nice. Tell us before we go on, tell us some of the honourable mentions that didn't make it into your top 10.
I wrote a bunch down.
Fantastic.
I panicked and over-prepared. So honourable mentions goes to Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, just because it's my favourite out of the franchise and it's a fantastic franchise. The original Halloween.
Yep.
Ginger Snaps, The Craft, Devil's Carnival and Devil's Carnival Alleluia, the sequel, and Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, because I'm a goth mostly because of the Hex Girls.
Nice. Very nice. So, cosplaying. How did you get into that?
It's kind of a boring story. Me and my
That's
best
what we're
friend
all
at
about
the time.
here.
Yeah, I bet. So interesting. Me and my best friend at the time were sort of just getting into cons. We were both like total weeaboos, which is embarrassing. And just, saw that people at cons were dressing up and we wanted to try it too. And it kind of snowballed from there eventually.
Yep. Everyone remembers their first. What was your first ever con dress up?
So I did Lucy from an anime called Elfen Lied. And it's a horror anime because of course it is. And yeah, it was awful. My makeup didn't match my skin tone at all because I stole my mum's makeup. And it was just not good.
What's your favourite that you've done so far?
Definitely the Xenomorph Queen that I did, I think 2 years ago for AvCon. It was my biggest project ever, the most expensive fabric I've ever used, and my first time working with EVA foam. So it was a huge challenge and I'm really proud of it.
Now, we've had a few cosplayers on before, and the answer's always different, but do you revisit cosplays if you either weren't happy with how they went or you think you can expand on them? Or is it kind of a one and done? You're like, nope, that was for a very specific time. I'm never touching it again.
Definitely depends on the cosplay. I'd love to revisit the Xenomorph Queen and fix it up a bit and apply my new skills to it. but that's also time and money. And I also just love doing so many different characters. My cosplayer list is humongous, so sometimes they get revisited and other times I'm just too excited to work on something else.
And what about your home? How many half-finished costumes adorn the halls of your home?
Actually, not that many. I think I have maybe one half-finished cosplay and the other are all just fabric piles that I haven't even made patterns for yet.
Yeah. Nice. I'm so happy because for years, other than I always wanted to go John Candy's character from Spaceballs, because I'm limited by my very small frame and my very slender physique. But Bro Thor has just opened the world of possibility for me.
Oh my God, you would kill that. That would be amazing.
I feel like it's specifically catering to us super muscly long distance runners like myself.
Absolutely. Just the prime physique of human beings.
That's it. It's not even my final form, believe it or not. So, yeah, this evening we're going to be going through your 10 favourite films of all time. Before we get to that, we'll play a little bit of music and we will come back with a quiz where we find out all about you and a whole lot more. This is 100.5 WOW FM. It is 100.5 WOW FM, a band that I'm scared any day are suddenly going to be taken off the face of the planet. There we heard from the Bloodhound Gang, the very PC 1990s group that took me all through high school. This is DVG. It is a guest choice special. We are going all through the favourite films of our very special guest this evening, Villain Visage. Before we get going, make sure you let everyone know about your social medias. Where would you like everyone to check your stuff out?
So Instagram is villain_visage. Twitter is @Villain Visage, and you can follow me on TikTok @Villain Visage.
Oh, you just said the naughty word. You said TikTok.
I love TikTok.
Get out of here. I'm an old man.
TikTok. I dress up as a clown and lip sync to songs. It's fantastic.
Awesome. I think the amount of people that used to make lip syncing videos, like when Dub Smash first came out, totally missed the wave of what was coming with TikTok. So good time. So we have a quiz with all of our guests where we get to know all about what's happening, and sometimes I have it open and ready, and tonight is not one of those nights. But here we are. This is to get to know all about you. Would you prefer to watch a movie at home or at the cinemas?
This is so easy. At home every time. I like going to the cinemas because I feel like it's a whole different experience, especially with horror films and having the surround sound. But nothing beats the comfort of just being in my own bed with whatever food I like that I didn't have to pay, or my partner didn't have to pay $50 for, and just having a chill night in.
That's it. And clothes optional as well.
Exactly.
I also enjoy, when you say about the experience of a horror film in the cinema, I prefer at home because if a horror movie is effective and really intriguing and you get sucked in, it makes your house scary.
It does, yes.
And that is an experience all on its own where you run to the next light switch because of how scary one of the movies you've watched.
Suddenly you have to have a bathroom buddy. Yep.
That's it. When you do go to the cinemas, what is the food of choice?
I wanted to say popcorn, but it's
so
never
glad
the
you're
first
not
thing.
going to.
It's never the first thing I kind of go for. So I'd have to say Skittles.
Nice.
Or maybe Choc Tops. Because I love ice cream, but my teeth are very sensitive, so I don't get to have it that often.
Now with the Skittles, are you a one at a time or just a handful?
Usually I'll eat by colour because I'm that person.
I'm meeting these people
But at the cinema, you can't see. So just grab a handful. Don't worry about it.
I was just about to make a blanket statement which casts you out, because I was going to say you can't trust someone that says they have a favourite flavour of Skittle, because you should be eating them like the skinny person I am and just handfuls at a time
no,
to the point where
everyone
dribble comes out the corner of your mouth.
The best colour is red.
These are facts that I'll have to myth bust.
Undisputed.
I'll put on a beret, and I've already got the ginger, so I can bust a myth with the best of them. Okay, if you could pick one for the rest of your life, and I already know your answer, would you pick comedy, horror, or drama?
I'll give you one guess.
I'm guessing biopics.
Absolutely.
Nice. Guessing it's horror.
Yes, absolutely horror. Every time. It was the easiest question to answer on this whole quiz.
A film that didn't get one but deserves one, which film deserves a sequel?
I really struggled with this question, but in the end, I decided that a prequel, which I know is kind of out of the boundaries, but a prequel to Cabin in the Woods would be excellent. Just seeing like different, because there's a whole list of monsters, a different monster on their list, or even a different culture, because there's a whole scene in Japan, and seeing either them fail or them succeed just before the end of the world happens.
Well, it definitely, we'll talk about it later on this evening, but it definitely has the potential there. Who would play you in a biopic?
So I couldn't pick someone that I felt looked like me, so instead I just went with my favorite actresses. So it's a toss-up between Samara Weaving or Margot Robbie. They both look pretty similar, so either one. They're both Australian.
Samara has the Adelaide accent to get her across the line.
Pretty much perfect.
Very nice. What is the last film that made you cry?
So when I was preparing to come on this show, because I am very over-prepared, hopefully,
you don't belong on this show then.
I get nervous and I just have to prep, otherwise I'm going to have a breakdown about it. But I rewatched all my films that are on my list, and I rewatched Repo the Genetic Opera, and the end scene there always makes me cry every time.
Oh, very nice. If a TV show or movie from your childhood could get a reboot, what would you choose?
This was also really hard. At first I said Addams Family, totally aware that that new film came out, but I'm angry at that new film because they cast Charlize Theron and the guy that played Poe
Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, and I thought they would be the most beautiful, perfect live action actors for the role, and then they made it that janky CGI, and I didn't like it.
It looked like someone had taken just some early Tim Burton sketches and traced them.
Well, it's very reminiscent of the original comic style of Charles Addams, but it doesn't work in the 3D animation because the comics were 2D.
I did like Lurch in the new movie.
He did look really cool.
I thought he was the best
My
part of it.
other shows were Grizzly Tales for Gruesome Kids, which is a total throwback.
Yep.
And The Munsters, because I feel like they deserve love as much as the Addams Family does.
Your choices are very on brand. I have to commend you for that.
We have a brand and we're sticking to it.
If you could drive one vehicle from any movie, and now we are counting the likes of time machines, the TARDIS from Doctor Who, anything that you can basically get inside of, what would you pick?
Again, I'm bending the rules here, but I have two.
That's fine.
So I picked the 1958 Plymouth Fury, the red one,
From
named Christine.
Very nice.
And also the Munsters coach.
Oh, yeah,
because that car is just beautiful.
I bring it up more often than I should, but there was an episode of Pimp My Ride where they did up a hearse as a mobile barbecue.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that is a dream car for me.
I would love to get an old hearse and just drive that around as my car.
There is one down in Nova Gardens way in someone's front yard. It's like a matte black, legit old school one.
Dream car.
I just want to knock on their door and be like, can I just have it?
Can I buy this?
I don't want to buy it. Just give it to me.
Just steal it.
If you could add your favourite fictional character to any other film to change it, who would you choose and what would the film be?
This was really hard too, and I feel like I overthought it. So again, I have two. I thought Pee Wee Herman in the Purge films would be really funny.
That would be amazing.
Just kind of being unaware of what's happening and coincidentally not getting killed the
Just
whole time.
bumbling through it.
Yeah. And also Jason Voorhees in Camp Rock. So you got the
That'd be
Jonas
perfect.
Brothers and you got Demi Lovato, and they're getting killed off by Jason Voorhees.
Fantastic. That would be fantastic. Which actor or actress do you find terribly attractive, if not the most attractive?
I couldn't pick one.
Okay, we'll list off some.
There's so many here. Are you ready?
We're here to be pervs.
Margot Robbie.
Nice.
Charlize Theron. Natalie Portman. Tessa Thompson. Tilda Swinton. Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Keanu Reeves. Mads Mikkelsen. Norman Reedus. And Jason Momoa.
You like hairy
There's
guys.
the list. Yes.
Hairy guys. Tilda Swinton, I did not think would be on someone's list, and that's not a barb towards Tilda. It's just she is interesting looking.
She is
for lack
an
of
acquired taste, and I wish I looked like her every day. She's so gorgeous. Have you seen Only Lovers Left Alive?
Yes.
It's her and Tom Hiddleston, and they're both just so stunning. And the whole film, I'm just kind of fanning myself a little bit.
I did hear at some point that she was in talks of taking up the role of Jareth the Goblin King for Labyrinth
I did
sequel.
hear that.
And that is probably a bit of casting that I would totally forgive.
If anyone was going to do it, it's her.
Definitely. I love... She's like... Character actors are always known for how much range they have, but she visually and just... She's like Daniel Day-Lewis almost. Like, it's an empty vessel, you feel, because every different character is so unique and it even looks so unique. Like, I think... I didn't realize it was her in Snowpiercer at the end because it was just so different from how she looks. And she does that in pretty much every film, much like Gary Oldman does.
She's incredible.
Definitely. Well, that is our quiz to let us know a little bit more about yourself. So we're going to jump into a little bit of music to take us up to your first choice. This is DVG. It is Dave's Video Graveyard, and it's always a good sign when the advertising for the film we're about to talk about mentions its release on VHS. That's right in our wheelhouse here on DVG. Why did you pick Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire from 2003?
So many reasons, but mainly I grew up watching Scooby-Doo as a kid, pretty much every piece of Scooby-Doo media I could find. This one is special because it is set in Australia, and as a kid where most of the cartoons I watched were very US-centric, this was really special to me. It was also the first time that I ever saw an Indigenous Australian being represented on any media that I watched, which was also very cool. I can't say that it's an accurate representation, and it certainly wasn't played by an Indigenous Australian actor. No. It was Phil Lamar, but still good. Still something for the time.
Yeah, that's it. And it was right around the time of What's New Scooby-Doo. So the animation process has updated, but it was still the classic look. It was just one of the first Scooby-Doo films that had all the shading and everything that made it like a real theatrical release. How many times... Do you remember the first time you've seen this?
No, I think I've watched it too many times. I remember being at... I think we bought it from Big W because they always had real cheap VHS tapes, and every week Mum would let us pick one to buy. And I picked it not knowing it was set in Australia, just being like, oh, cool, vampires. I love vampires. And then putting it in and being like, oh my God, they're going to Australia. That's amazing. And it was also the first time I saw the Hex Girls, which was just an eye-opening moment for me. It's like, whoa, you can dress like that? You can have fangs and not be a vampire? That's so cool.
So it was a catalyst of the person I have sitting across from me right now.
I always say I'm a goth because of the Hex Girls, which, you know, obviously it's a mixed bag of influences here, but they're definitely a huge one.
I felt I was always left out of the goth subculture simply for the fact of my beautiful strawberry blonde hair and my dark olive complexion, as you can see sitting before you.
So tan.
I did have a goth phase.
Good,
and
everyone
it literally
should.
Was a phase. I do miss my blue-black hair every day.
Oh, that would be amazing.
And I just would love to go back any time. And my 3-year-old daughter finds it so funny to the bottom of her soul when I show her the pictures that it genuinely hurt my feelings. I was like...
I'm so sorry.
It's just... The heartiest laugh I've ever got out of her was her looking at, like, my band day my MySpace era photos.
At least she got a laugh.
Yeah, that's
it's
it.
Something. But she could have just looked at it and went, eh.
And my oldest son pointed out, he goes, oh, you didn't have eyebrows when your hair was black either.
You gotta fill that shit in.
That's it. I live in a family of bullies. Do you watch a lot? How long did you follow the lineage of Scooby-Doo films?
I still do.
Still to this day?
They're still bringing them out, so I'm still watching them. With the exception of Scoob, which was just released, because they can't do my boy Matthew Lillard like that.
It hurt his feelings. However, I have seen Scoob, and it's pretty fantastic.
I heard that they were trying to build a big Hanna-Barbera universe, which could be interesting. I'll probably watch it at some point.
One big issue I took with watching it, and it really brought the film nerd out in me, I took the kids to... No, I didn't see it. I legally downloaded it because it was COVID times. Uh-huh. Legally downloaded it. When Scooby as a little puppy meets Shaggy as a kid for the first time, they bond over eating a big doner kebab that they stole from a truck. And if you know anything, Casey Kasem said that Shaggy would always be a vegetarian.
Yes.
I was like, that's so against type. Will Forte voices him, Shaggy, in Scoob.
Yeah.
And I love Will Forte, but he just doesn't have the Lillard chops.
No, like Kasem and Lillard, they're it for me. That's it. That's Shaggy.
Yeah, 100%. What did you think of the live action films of 2002, 2003?
I loved them. I still watch them to this day. I definitely watched the first one more than the second, but I like both of them. I like Velma's arc in the second movie and the whole makeover scene she gets.
Overnight, WOWFM have like a mix of just songs, like really random, just radio songs that play whenever someone's not on air. And for some reason, there are so many Big Brother songs on there. And it's even got the song from Scooby-Doo by Big Brothers. And I'm like,
excellent.
I need to revisit those films.
Yes, they're still so good.
Freddie Prinze Jr. and yeah, no, that's...
Yeah.
I really need to revisit them, and I feel like I'm not going to love them. However, I have an undying 1990s love of Matthew Lillard, so I'm sure that it's pretty special.
Yes.
What are some of your other favourites when it comes to Scooby-Doo?
Definitely Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, which was our honourable mention before, because again, that was the introduction of the Hex Girls. It also had Tim Curry as the villain, which he played that role so hard. He didn't have to go that hard, but he wanted to, and everyone else was sort of doing the minimum, and he just went for it, and it's too much, but at the same time, so perfect. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase is another big childhood favourite as well, and Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, because it was the first time they felt like they were in real danger, so it scared me so much as a kid, because like, oh my god, the zombies are real. That's not supposed to happen.
I watched one with one of my kids fairly recently, and I couldn't tell you much about it, but I did really enjoy it. There was a ghost ska band.
Oh my god, is that from the Mystery Incorporated show?
It may have been, but there is this song in it called You're Right, Mate.
Yes, I love that. That episode is so good.
It was stuck in my head for literally a month. But I didn't know where I'd heard the song. And I'm like, where did I hear in 2019, where did I hear a ska band? And I'm like, it's not Real Big Fish. It's a ska band. And then my son watched it again. I'm like, there we go.
The Mystery Incorporated series is so incredible. The storyline is amazing. Like, every episode, there's a new monster, but it still follows that main storyline. I just think it's really good. It's a really excellent reboot to the original.
And if you're on the fence about seeing Scoob, I can definitely push you over the not seeing it edge and let you know that there is a cameo from Simon Cowell playing himself from American Idol.
I did see that because I watched reviews of it because I was trying to decide.
Yeah, that is the most unforgivable part, other than the fact that Shaggy is not a vegetarian. Each to its own. So with that, we will jump back into the music. This is 100.5 WOWFM. Don't forget, you can join in the conversation simply by jumping on our Facebook, Dave's Video Graveyard on WOWFM, or hitting us up on Instagram. This is DVG. It is Dave's Video Graveyard. We're talking all about Villain Visage's favourite films of all time, and we have hit an absolute classic. Many a times guests have picked Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1. You have gone and picked the change in the franchise. It went from a straight-up horror. This is a dark comedy / horror film. Why did you pick it?
I want to preface this with I love the first film so much, but at the end of the day, TCM2 has my heart because, well, first of all, Bill Moseley.
Chop Top is the greatest character in the entire franchise, in my opinion.
He was so perfect for the character. He actually got chosen for the role of Chop Top after he did the parody Texas Chainsaw Manicure, and he played the hitchhiker in the parody. So then when they made this film, they were like, you have to come be Chop Top, which is the hitchhiker's twin brother, but in this one, the hitchhiker Nubbins is dead.
So for anyone that hasn't seen this one and has seen the original, essentially the brother of the dude from the wheelchair in the first one is Dennis Hopper, who's a sheriff.
Oh, uncle, I think, actually.
I thought it was brother. He's a Texas Ranger, and he basically is hunting down the entire family from the... Yeah, it's basically a Texas Marshal chasing the Leatherface and his family, and it is... I often compare this to... I know it's way less of a franchise to a lot of people, but Gremlins 1 and Gremlins 2. The first is like this kooky horror film, and the second is just a straight-up insane, like over the top.
It's a change in pace.
It is a change of pace. And this is so just phonetic. It is just crazy. Like,
this was also directed by Toby Hooper, who did the first one, so you think it would be similar, but he really wanted to do something different, and I think this was perfect. Just the pacing of the film, the dialogue, the character development with Bubba Sawyer, Leatherface, and like getting to see him interact more with the family than just, you know, being big scary chainsaw men was really fun. Like, I always love when they're in the radio station and like him and Chop Top high five, and I just think it's such a cute moment. If you can call him cute.
It also shows, it's quite funny to see how much characterization you can get through a mask made of faces, because the scene with, I know it's quite grueling, but the scene with the ice bucket.
Yes.
That is so comedic because of the physicality of Leatherface.
And I love that scene is so important to me because like it kind of can play off as comedic, but also I feel like it's such an important character moment for Leatherface where it's like he gets kind of flustered over a girl, and then like the chainsaw's obviously a very phallic weapon. And my thing is I love horror academia, and there's a book by Carol J. Clover called Men, Women and Chainsaws where she goes into gender studies in horror films and mainly Texas Chainsaw, and I think that scene really drives home all the points she makes in her books about you know, men wielding power over women and stuff like that. I won't go too far into it because people will fall asleep.
I was just going to say before you go too far, what's a book?
It's Scott Words.
They're those analog movies, yeah?
Yeah, but the pictures are like in your head. It's gnarly. So bizarre.
It's the printed out subtitle things.
Yeah.
Right. Now I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
No, not to take anything away from what you're saying. Do you remember the other films that were covered in that book?
Not off the top of my head, unfortunately. But it does, like, if you're interested in horror academia, I warn you, it does read like an essay, but it is such an interesting read if you're into that kind of thing. If not, maybe give it a miss.
Because I feel like the go-to any time that gender comes up when it comes to horror movies, Carrie is always like...
Definitely. I think she does touch on Carrie because I think it's very 70s oriented.
Yeah. I also liked when no one... there was a billboard in LA when this film came out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and everyone went and saw it and didn't quite get it, and you know there was a lot of fan backlash. And Toby Hooper has said many a times, the billboard and the cover of the VHS was incredible. A parody of The Breakfast Club.
Yes.
So he's like, how did you miss that? Like everyone thought the funny parts were accidental, and
the poster really set the tone for the
100%.
film.
100%. And that it really upset Toby Hooper to hear that everyone was misconstruing the movie,
because
I'm like,
everything that man does is so purposeful and well thought out, and if you think he did anything on accident, you're wrong.
And you look at his career though, like you look at what he went on to do with like Poltergeist, and then everyone's like, oh, he didn't really do it, it was Spielberg and he was just there. And it's like, read into it.
You'll
guys.
miss that, but I rolled my eyes so hard.
It came across. It came through the mic.
I sure hope it did.
It sounded like a ship going back and forth. It was very creaky. You need some eye drops. Did you stick with the franchise? Like we're talking the Arnie Ermery remake and the Renee Zellweger, Matthew McConaughey
Oh
vehicle.
my God, Matthew McConaughey's acting in that film is like a Jawa in Star Wars. It's so bizarre. The sounds that man makes, if you just get the sound bites from that film, it's just incredibly hilarious, and I don't think he meant it to be.
He so wanted to be Chop Top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
he
that
brought
was...
that energy, but not the execution.
No, not at all. And I do love that obviously the original poster of Next Generation was the lipstick chainsaw.
Yeah.
And then because Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey both hit fame after, because it was A Time to Kill and something else, they redid the cover to feature Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey, and they both tried to legally get out of that cover of it.
I heard that McConaughey's agents didn't even want them to release the film at all. I'm like, good, be embarrassed about it.
Yeah, no, I'd still think it has the charm, and anyone that doesn't think so should revisit it.
It's watchable, and I didn't hate it, but it's a lot.
When people talk crap about Texas 2, I always say it's got Joe Bob Briggs in it, so that's got to be a great thing. And also, there is a duel where Dennis Hopper has holsters for his chainsaw on his belt.
Yes.
And if that doesn't tell you
The
what
chainsaw
you're
battle is everything. It's
and the
so good.
Is it Texas? Not Texas Danger Zone.
Texas Battleland is
Texas
the abandoned
Battleland.
theme park where they live. The set design by Kerry White is so gorgeous. That's a scene where they're in the tunnel and there's all the lights. I heard they actually did that just so the production team could actually see, but it plays so beautifully on camera. It looks incredible.
It has become a staple of horror, like the fairy lights and all the party lights and all
Yes.
that lighting. It's been reused every time a serial killer in a movie takes someone to a fairground.
Yep.
Every time, well, everything Rob Zombie touches pretty much borrows from this film. And yeah, no, it's such a fun time. And I think anyone that saw it with the first one in mind isn't going to enjoy it as much as it deserves. And it needs to almost be like a revisionist history. Someone go back and check it out for the first time, just stand
But
alone.
also, it's the only other film in the franchise that follows on from the first one.
That's it. What did you think of the remake, sorry?
Leatherface or...
Not Leatherface, because that was insulting. The one where it's more about... I believe it was 2013. It's more about the Sawyer family than it is about...
Oh, yeah, yeah. I didn't hate that.
Is it the beginning? Texas Chainsaw
Yeah,
Massacre,
was
the
that
beginning?
with Verna, with the matriarch for once?
Yes,
Instead of
yeah.
having an all-male family, they had Verna Sawyer, I think.
Yeah, she was the sheriff's sister.
Yeah, like I said, the first two are always going to be my absolute favorites, and I'm going to revisit them the most, but I didn't really hate anything in the whole franchise that much. And I think the beginning definitely has its merits.
All right, it is time to get into the one film on your list that I haven't seen. This is DVG. It is 100.5 WOW FM. Put on your platform boots and your spiked collars because this film looks like a doozy. Why did you pick Repo, the Genetic Opera from 2008?
This is so simple. It is a goth rock opera.
Gothra.
A
No?
goth I don't know. It doesn't get much better than that, to be honest. Before I saw this film, I thought I didn't like musicals, but it really proved me wrong. And this was by Darren Bozeman and Terence Sedunich, and they also did another film together called The Devil's Carnival, which is also excellent, also recommended. But this one gets the pick because it's just incredible. The costumes, the makeup, the gore when the Repo Man comes to take back your body parts. The songs are incredible. Just everything about this movie is so well thought out, so well planned. And again, we've got Bill Moseley, which you just really can't go wrong with him.
Yeah.
Unless you hate Rob Zombie.
Well, no. I'm just looking through all the stills, and beyond Moseley, it looks like everyone else in this film is played by Danny Filth. So I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
It's definitely
there's
goth
Paris
vibe.
Hilton.
Paris Hilton is in this, and she is so incredible because, you know, the character she puts on for the public media, that kind of airheaded blonde, this role is sort of a parody of that, and she understands that, and she plays it off so beautifully, and it's just so intelligent and so sultry and gorgeous, and I love her so much.
Visually, I can definitely see the appeal that it has to you because it does look a lot like something that Toby Hooper would do if he had a massive budget and
yes,
friends in an industrial band.
It's just so, I can't tell you how much I love this movie because I just don't have the words
The whole
for it.
point of this evening is you telling me in words how much you love this movie.
Very
so
good, 10
you're
out of 10,
failing.
excellent movie. All right, that's my review. Thank you.
David and Margaret give it 5 out of 5 and check it out at your local theatre.
You should.
How often
theaters?
How often do you revisit this film?
Pretty often. It's probably like maybe a 3-month cycle. Not that like it's timed or anything, but it's just like, you know what? I could really go for just like jamming out along with this cool musical where everyone's a goth and everyone's so beautiful, and I would love to make every single costume from this film.
This has an incredible cast too. I can't believe some of the people that are in this film. Paul Sorvino from Goodfellas.
His singing parts are so incredible. He can really belt it out. He's amazing. He's the perfect, like, I don't know, he plays it sort of almost like a mob boss, but he's the head of Genco, the company, and he's just so powerful and cool, and his songs are just amazing. And he's sort of the antagonist in the whole film, and it's just the perfect role for him. You've got Sarah Brightman, who's known more as a singer than an actress, and she plays Blind Mag, and she's just so gorgeous. Her sort of big moment in the film, I don't want to spoil it because I just really think you should watch it, but it's like so shocking and gory and amazing. And also Bill Moseley singing just is not that great, but it brings me so much serotonin, so much joy. It's just worth it for that, honestly.
Nice. I've definitely got it on my list, and like I said, shout out to my friend Ree, who suggested, because I wanted to look cool for you guys this evening, so I was like, what's the best song in Repo? And she told me that. I'm not even going to read it out.
Zydrate Anatomy.
That's what I said.
Yes.
I'm good at reading.
My personal favorite is Mark It Up and Thankless Job, but I feel like Zydrate Anatomy is the best choice because it's the most catchy one, it's the one that everybody knows, and it probably plays better as a song for the radio.
Who knows? We're not here to sound good on the radio, so that's fine.
No, that's why you had me on.
Nice. Nice. I'll play it. Let's get back into the music. This is 100.5 WOW FM. This is DVG on 100.5 WOW FM. We have got to the section. I can see how passionate you are right now. It's weird that you cracked your elbows and your neck and limbered up, cracked your fingers, popped your knuckles.
Ready to fight.
We are talking about from 2009, Jennifer's Body. Why did you pick this film, and why do you love the marketing so much?
Oh, you are looking for a fight. Okay, let's start with the positives first. So this was directed by Karen Kasama and written by Diablo Cody, both women. This is a horror movie for women, specifically teenage girls, and it's like a coming of age, but horror. So you have Megan Fox as Jennifer and Amanda Seyfried as Needy, and they're best friends, and they go to this concert, and then Jennifer gets sacrificed, but it goes wrong, and she turns into this demonic creature that eats men. And it's just a really good film. It explores like how toxic teenage friendships can be. The writer actually said that when she was thinking about what she wrote Juno, and that kind of gave her a ticket to write whatever the heck she wanted. And when she thought about horror and what was scary, she thought, oh, high school girls, high school drama. And it explores, how complex their friendships are, especially like childhood friends, growing up, and both of them changing, still trying to be friends, but then, you're kind of drifting apart or changing as people, and the toxicity that goes with that. And it's just a really good film. I saw it as a teenage girl, and it was, incredible. Finally, a movie for me. Which brings us to the marketing. When I think it was Fox got a hold of this marketing, they decided, Megan Fox hot. Megan Fox get naked in this movie. Let's do that. So they marketed it towards teenage boys, and in the trailers and stuff, it's just showing how gorgeous Megan Fox is, which, is not incorrect, but also unfair to just reduce her performance in this film to just being gorgeous.
She can also ruin my favorite cartoon franchises, including Ninja Turtles.
Yes. Because, she's treated as eye candy.
She's eye candy, 100%.
And this film really shows her acting chops, but the marketing decided it was going to be for boys now. And that's not to say boys can't enjoy this movie. I know a lot of guys who've seen this film and are like, this is really good. But it's not technically written for them.
This film was created to basically subvert the late 90s Dimension film style horror film. So you think like Urban Legends,
yep.
Pretty much everything released by Dimension and Miramax in the late 90s, early 2000s. So they didn't want it to be basically the bro humor. Chicks are just there to get killed, or look good.
Yes.
This, like you say, tried to totally change that whole vibe. But then Fox are like, oh, cool. It could pretty much be like another Jawbreaker or something along those lines.
And understandably, boys went into this film thinking, I'm going to see Megan Fox get naked, she's going to make out with Amanda Seyfried, and it's going to be so good. not seeing the irony in the fact that, you know, her whole purpose in the film is to kill men. So they came out disappointed without seeing, you know, the actual good parts of this film because they've been lied to. So they're angry, and that's so understandable. But, you know, it's just so unfair on this film's creators and everybody involved in this film that it was reduced to that and then scorned because of it. And it just makes me cranky.
You love the marketing of
But
this
no,
film.
but like imagine if something like Mean Girls was marketed in the way that Jennifer Body was marketed. Like if they pretended Mean Girls was actually for guys, and then guys went and saw Mean Girls and was like, isn't that for teenage girls? Isn't this movie for girls? Because
Where's all
it
the
is.
knockers?
Yeah, so, you know, understandably people were disappointed, but like give this film another shot if you haven't seen it because it's genuinely so good.
Definitely. I haven't seen it for a very long time. I remember when it came out at the video shop I was working at, actually. And the original cover was not the one I'm looking at now. That is basically looks like the cover of a porno.
Because when girls see the cover of this film and it's, again, Megan Fox looking incredibly gorgeous, they're put off because they're like, oh, this movie isn't for me. This movie is for boys. And boys also are thinking that this movie's for them because of the marketing, and then everybody leaves disappointed and confused. But, you know, in recent years, this film's really had a renaissance where people are going back and watching and being like, hey, this is awesome.
Definitely. How often do you revisit this one?
Probably not as often as the other ones, but it just holds such a special place in my heart because, like, the first time I watched it, I was at a sleepover with my friends, and it was just a really good, memorable, fun night. And, you know, I like a lot of those coming-of-age films that are, you know, based around females, like The Craft, Ginger Snaps, even, like, Carrie. They're all important to me because it's, you know, kind of hard to find cool female protagonists and even antagonists in horror movies.
Yep, definitely. Awesome. Sorry, my computer has just frozen. It's not that I'm not listening. The computer's
We're having technical issues.
Yeah, you know, it is what it is.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah, I know. It's my first time. It's never happened before. Before we go any further, let's hear a little bit of this. This is DVG. It is Dave's Video Graveyard here on WOWFM. We are talking about a film from 1989, a film that most possibly wouldn't get made in 2020 because it's basically the lighter side of killing other students at school. This film is Heathers, and it is from 1989, as I said, and the synopsis is, in order to get out of a snobby clique that is destroying her good girl reputation, an intelligent teen teams up with a dark sociopath in a plot to kill the cool kids, starring both Winona Ryder and Christian Slater. Shannon Doherty is in there, pre-90210. Why did you pick this film?
It's just always been a film.
Why did you pick this film?
Wow, I forgot everything I wrote down right in front of me. I picked this film because I think it's a really good example of black comedy, high school satire, a really good take on how pointless the social hierarchy of high schools really are and how they just don't really matter in the real world. And it's sort of just this nihilistic take on, like, nothing matters. I also love the fact that suicide, it plays on how media tends to really romanticize suicide as a concept when, like, obviously that's not a good thing to do. Please don't. And it gives the characters depth by, like, making them seem like they had all these deep, intelligent thoughts and they were really suffering and it was tragic. But really, we as the audience know they were just murdered. There was no deep thoughts going on. They didn't kill themselves to be like, oh, I'm suffering and it's sad. In fact, the only character who is genuinely suffering and genuinely attempts to take her own life not only survives, but, you know, she's not murdered. And she's the character that Veronica ends up with at the end, Martha Dunstock. And I think it's really cool that Veronica sort of reaches out to her at the end of the film because she sees that, like, A, she's the only character that's genuinely suffered, and B, she's the only other character that gets the fact that the social hierarchy does not matter.
Yeah, 100%. And just to get a little bit real for a second, of course, if anyone out there is struggling or having a hard time, there is always someone there to listen. And one of the services that you can always use is, of course, Lifeline. You can give them a call on 131114 or log on to lifeline.org.au. They've got the online crisis support chat and a massive list of resources for you. So just while we're in the ballpark of the subject matter of this film, I thought it'd be a good time to bring that up. But yeah, this film is such a good example of how the microcosm of high school, when you're living in it, it is so hard to get in the mindset of not realizing that it's not forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's not until you're really out of high school that you go, oh, it didn't really matter.
That's it. Nothing is more, nothing makes you feel more liberated and better than when you realize that. Even whether or not you had a good high school experience or a bad high school experience, there does come a time after you've done it where you're like, it doesn't mean as much as I thought it did.
No, but when it's your whole life and you're there 5 days a week, 9 till 3 or whatever your school hours are, it does feel like a big deal. It does feel like your whole life because at the time it is. But, like, if you're having a hard time at high school, I can promise you it gets better.
Oh, 100%. Like, so many, particularly creative people, so many people thrive in, like, after high school, whether they go to TAFE or further education or even if they go into the workforce.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not the most important thing. But like you say, you kind of get tunnel vision when you're there because, it's all you know. But, yeah, we can promise anyone listening that it gets better.
Yes, absolutely. To sort of get back on track to the film just a little bit, I'll actually talk about why I like this film now that we've covered everything else.
It's now you're going to just ogle and basically objectify Christian Slater, aren't you?
Well, now I won't because I think you covered it.
Because you're on the right show if that's the case. We could do a list of all the films that you should ogle Christian Slater in.
And he's so toxic. Like, JD is so toxic in this film, but he's just so nice to look at. So, check your personalities, like, yes.
And this
Don't be Veronica.
This was peak Slater. Like, it was right around the golden time. Have you seen Pump Up the Volume?
No, I haven't.
One of my favourite films of all time. So check that one out.
Check it out, yes.
Yeah. I'll check out Repo, and you can check out Pump Up the Volume.
Yes. Something I really like about this film, though, is the aesthetic, that kind of all-American backdrop of like a perfect suburban life, and everyone's in their cute little blazers, and everyone's quite not rich but well off, and then it's sort of subverted or juxtaposed by the dark themes, and I always love that in films. I always love when it's quite a bright and shiny exterior and then actually it's a little bit dark.
Yeah, and it does have that, like you say, the juxtaposition of it's almost an infomercial of like a perfect suburban life. And then you get like the tool in the crank, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Being Christian Slater.
And the other thing is the dialogue. The dialogue in this film is so iconic. And I read that the writer Daniel Waters made up a lot of the lingo in this film because he didn't want it to age badly. As time progresses, so too does buzzwords for what we like to say. And so he made it all up so that it wouldn't age poorly, and I just think it's so iconic, like so very.
And for any fat dads out there listening, such as myself, he also wrote Batman Returns.
Woohoo! Something we know.
That's one for the strawberry blondes in the audience. Yeah, this movie is... it comes up quite often on a lot of people's lists because it is so iconic. And I've noticed people enjoy it no matter what age they watch it. Like I've seen people that were in high school when they saw it really appreciate it. People outside of high school that really appreciated it. It's such a cool... And I think it's perhaps the best Winona Ryder performance.
It's a toss-up for me between Heathers and Girl Interrupted. Girl Interrupted's obviously a lot more serious, sort of the same themes. There's mental health and suicide, but it's played much more seriously. because it is, but that's such a gorgeous film and she plays it so beautifully. But Heathers will just always be one of the best Winona Ryder performances, definitely.
Awesome. What would you give this film out of 10?
Like a 10? I don't know. I'm bad at criticizing things.
What would you give a poster of Christian Slater out of 10?
69.
69. Very nice answer. Don't forget, if you are having trouble, you can contact Lifeline. The number is 131114. This is DVG as we continue here on WOWFM. It is 100.5 WOWFM, Dave's Video Graveyard, as we hit the nightmare fuel section of this evening. Of all the visceral horror films and really violent, really adult content films that you've picked this evening, this is the one that I promise would give the most people nightmares.
Content warning.
yeah, content warning. There's no one you can call for this. We are talking about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Why did you pick this messed up film?
I love this movie so much. I don't really laugh at comedy films, but this film, I kind of laugh the whole way through. It's just flawlessly funny.
It makes paper mache terrifying.
It's so good. So the Kyoto brothers wrote and directed this. It's their only writing and directing credit, I believe. But they've worked on stuff like RoboCop, Gremlins, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Critters. They designed the Critters. And so they also designed the clowns, which is, why they're so flawless and beautiful.
And this film is really famous for its shoestring budget. Like, it has the highest production values.
I believe it was $2 million?
Yeah, $2 million. And if you look at the animatronics used, the puppetry, all the practical effects, you wouldn't get this for $2 million, even today's money, just because they did everything pretty much themselves. They even acted in parts of the film. And why don't you tell us what this lovely film is about?
So it's set in Crescent Cove, and one night two lovers are making out with the, you know how in teenagers in film just line up in their cars somewhere and just make out point. And
make out as in pretend? Like, I don't know what do you mean? What's making out?
I'll tell you when you're older.
Okay.
So we've got Mike Tobacco and Debbie Stone, and they witness a shooting star, and they go and follow the shooting star because apparently Mike Tobacco's kissing game is just not that good because she is way more interested in that shooting star.
Is anyone with the last name Tobacco good at anything ever?
Selling tobacco?
Sorry to the tobacco family out there listening this evening, but yeah, I don't know.
It's not you, it's your name. So they go and follow it, and they find a circus tent, and they go inside. And by the way, the production design, the set design on this film is amazing. The inside of that tent, spoiler alert, it's the alien clown's home, is so beautiful. It's so wacky and fun and just amazing. Like, I can't even think of how they came up with these concepts because they're just incredible.
It reminds me of the Garbage Pail Kids film. Have you ever seen that nightmare
No,
film?
but I'm aware of the Garbage Pail Kids.
The movie, the practical effects are pretty much exactly the same as they are in this.
Good.
Horrifying.
Excellent. I'll have to watch it now. You've
You-
sold me on it.
I feel like everyone I've told about that film has gone on to watch it and hate it. I think perhaps you're the one that will really appreciate it.
I watched Attack of the Killer Donuts. I can get through anything.
Have you seen Rubber?
Yes. I liked it.
Not for me. I grew up watching trauma films and I still don't see the upside of like a lot of
I
garbage.
watch trauma films to be ironic, and they're all garbage and all very horrifying. And they have a musical, so go find that.
Yeah.
But back to this movie. The kills are some of the most creative kills you've ever seen in a horror film. As a side, one of my big problems with a lot of killer clown films is that the killer is just dressed as a clown. He's not really a clown. He doesn't do clown things. The clowns in this movie, even though they're aliens, they are clowns. You know, they're doing shadow puppets on the wall, and then the shadow puppet eats a guy, or like they pull boxing gloves out of nowhere and literally knock a guy's block off. And it's just so creative and fun.
I don't think you mentioned clowns though.
No? Well, guess what? There's clowns. In the film Killer Clowns from Outer Space, there's clowns.
I'll go back through that whole talk break and use my computer to remove the word clowns. And I think it's just you saying and And?
Take a shot every time I say clowns. Or don't, you'll die.
Yeah,
Don't die.
pretty much. Drink responsibly, so don't do that. Oh, man, this film, it is not surprisingly the first time it's come up here on DVG of our 90-plus guests that we've had. So congratulations on...
What do I win?
You get to...
Bad taste in films.
The title, just the prestige of knowing that happened.
Beautiful.
How many people have you tricked into watching this film?
Actually, maybe one, maybe just my partner. It's for me. It's my movie. Go away.
That's what. Hey,
I really do encourage people to watch this film. It is so funny.
Well, while we're on the subject of clowns, let's go with this one. This is DVG. It is Dave's Video Graveyard. The year's 2017, and the face of film adaptations of Stephen King works are changed. The entire world come out against this film before it was released, saying that Tim Curry's depiction of Pennywise could not be touched. However, I think it wasn't just touched, it was surpassed. This is It Chapter 1. Why did you pick this perfect film?
So this film actually helped me get over my fear of clowns. I was a full coulrophobic before this film came out, terrified of clowns. And we went and saw this film in theaters. By the way, I sat on the edge of the row, so I was so convinced something was just going to jump out at me the whole time. I was just terrified the whole film. But then I liked the movie so much that I watched it over and over again until I just was not scared of clowns anymore. Now I dress up as one as a hobby, so that's fun.
I don't know how someone with a fear of clowns would get through the Richie scene of this film.
It was, all I could picture was like me in his shoes and just being like, no, definitely not. But now I kind of wish my bedroom was decorated like that. So how times change.
I was never scared of clowns. However, I almost left this film in the cinemas being scared of clarinets because the lady in the painting in this film...
That painting lady scared the crap out of me.
So horrifying. This is probably one of the most effective horror movies I can remember in a very long time. I saw it at the cinema and at home, and both times it got me so good. The child actors are perfect, much like... almost like a Spielberg film, basically.
Yes.
The casting is perfect. And, you know, it's so rare to see the main protagonists of a horror film be kids.
Yes, and pull it off so well.
Well, that's it. It's like an R-rated Goonies.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a, like, it feels like such a coming-of-age movie right up until all the horror starts, and it's just so well done, and you just feel like you're so connected with these kids, and you know, want them to be okay. And then everything goes to hell so quickly.
And to get a film that's 11 out of 10, to then have a sequel that's like 4 out of 10.
What a train wreck.
How did it go wrong with all the same people
Had
helming it?
such a superstar cast.
Bill Hader, the greatest character actor of our generation.
And it was just not very good. I won't go into a review of that because it's very negative, but It Chapter 1 was incredible.
Definitely. Some obviously problematic elements left out from the book, which is all that anyone seems to go on about.
For
like
me,
they were expecting that to be in the film.
Thank God it wasn't. But for me, this is as close as you can get to faithfully adapting that book while including all the good stuff and leaving out all the not so great stuff. I didn't mind that it wasn't non-linear because I kind of don't really like that style of filmmaking. More often than not, I don't end up enjoying it, or it's too confusing for my tiny brain. So, you know, I really enjoyed this film. I loved how you got to know every character and they all had depth before all the scary stuff starts happening.
Yep, definitely. The town of Derry is a character of its own as well. Like, it felt like a lived-in town. So often, films just feel like they've driven to a suburb and just filmed in the road. This had a character all to its own. I love, upon repetitive watching, the amount of times you actually get to capture Pennywise in the background of stuff.
He's always there. Do you know what I love so much? And I noticed this during my first viewing, which I'm very proud of, was every time the TV's on in the background, it's that children's show with a woman, and she's always saying, like, horribly creepy things, like, it's fun to go down to the sewers. Let's all play in the sewers. And it's just, her, and it's just such evidence that, Pennywise has influence over the entire town and everything, and no one really notices. And I think it's such a cool detail to put in.
And what's great, one of the things that always bogs down Stephen King films is no one knows how to adapt his, such descriptive writing. Half the time you get the characters kind of reading you the passages of the book because they're like, oh, let's have a big expedition dump right here. And like, this is what happened here. They do this so effectively, particularly with the flashback, like the kid who works at the abattoir.
Yes.
Where he basically tells the history of what his pop had told him. That is such an effective way of building up the story of Derry. And then, of course, the bigger kid and all the research he does at the library.
Yes, although I think that was supposed to be for one of the other kids. Mike Hanlon's character was supposed to be more of the research guy, and I wish they included Mike a bit more because I think he's such a fantastic character. That being said, I love Ben Hanscom. He's probably my favorite of all the kids. The other thing I really enjoyed about this film was that they set it forward in time in the 80s. I think that's so clever because it really does play on people's current nostalgia for the 80s, and it's way more effective.
Yep. It definitely borrowed heavily from the likes of Stranger Things in that sense because everyone, like I said, it makes you think instantly of the likes of the Goonies or the Monster Squad, something along those lines.
People are nostalgic for that at the moment.
100%, but also the dialogue of this film is so well written that it's so realistic.
Yes. There's not a moment where you don't feel like you're watching actual kids having fun during summer or not having fun during summer.
Well, because you go back and you watch the 1992 miniseries, and it's so accidentally camp is the best way I can describe it. Like, they do not know that that's what's coming across. I always loved John Ritter in the original, but this is such a well-written film and such a modern film. And I think that it's really effective given that it's set in the 80s, but it just feels so modern in a stylistic way, but not a visual way.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like the 80s, but it feels so modern.
And it's so cleverly done. It's just incredible.
And I'll never see a kid in a raincoat again without being creeped out. Awesome. Let's move on to the next film on your list. This is DVG. It is Dave's Video Graveyard. 1996, a genre of horror film that was absolutely exhausted was the slasher. It had fallen to its lowest point in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was revived by one of the men that helped create it, Wes Craven, the creator, director, writer of many of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, returned to the genre with Scream, a film that was pretty much the first slasher film that was super meta and very self-aware, and it kind of changed the scope of horror films moving forward. All horror films had to call back other horror films. It existed in a world where all the other horror films existed. Why did you pick this magnificent game changer of a film?
First of all, because I've just rewatched it so many times. Second of all, because it did have such a huge impact on the genre, for better or for worse. It completely changed horror, and it's just so iconic. No matter how you feel about this movie, you understand the impact it has. And I think horror as a genre has always been very self-referential, but before this, it was in a very subtle way, and then this just allowed them to go full hog.
And just the amount of things that it gave, like the horror zeitgeist, because you have, it was a new killer, it poked fun at itself the whole time, but it was very self-aware, but at the same time, took all the strengths of the genre and made them stronger. It gave us a lot of Lillard, which is always a super positive thing.
Yes.
I just think pretty much the entire cast of this film, this is where I know them from. You got the bad photocopy of Johnny Depp that was Skeet Ulrich. It also an uncredited, amazing opening by Drew Barrymore, who many people thought because of the marketing was the main character of the film.
They were shocked when she was killed off.
And I also think the second one is really fantastic. I'll love anything that has Timothy Olyphant in it, but I think the first two were really strong. The third one not as strong. However, this was such a game changer. I hate to keep using that word, but it really was. It is quite funny though. I don't know if you're a fan of the Scary Movie franchise, but the way that it lampoons the original Scream movie is really perfect in a lot of ways.
Honestly, you know that scene in Scream where it's Tatum and Ghostface in the garage and she's like hitting him with the freezer door and
Yep.
he's doing all these like massive stunt falls. Just the way the cape flaps in the wind while he's falling, I think that was enough to inspire the Scary Movie franchise right there. It looked so comical.
Yeah, and I'm sure it got a lot of people to not buy garage doors.
Yeah. Don't get stuck in there if you've got boobs.
Well, I think, and to be my pervert self back in 1996, I gained a massive enjoyment of lime green t-shirts.
Well, that makes one of us because I wasn't actually around in 1996.
I'm just going to put a blanket over my legs for the last 10 minutes of the show. This film is fantastic. Did you bother with the TV show or Scream 4?
I did watch the whole TV series and I liked it. It was, very different from the films and it had its own sort of killer.
I hate to be a
was really
Star
good.
Wars fan about it, but the changing of the mask just upset me so much.
I think it was an important move for them to make to sort of, even though they're using the Scream name, which is, probably a money grab, I think it was important for them to sort of change the icon to suit them, and I think it works.
And it's awesome to have Wes Craven get himself another franchise.
Definitely.
Because obviously he was so well known and not a one-trick pony because he had the likes of Mind Ripper and a lot of other films. But he was the slasher guy. He was the Freddy Krueger guy.
And speaking of Freddy, Wes Craven's cameo in this movie as Fred the janitor wearing that green and red
Stripey,
sweater was everything to me. As a horror fan, I was just like, oh my god, that's amazing. Like, obviously the whole movie's referential, but that was just my favorite moment.
And I'd even argue that Dimension Films pretty much exists off the back of the strength of Scream. So you got the likes of Urban Legend, all the late 90s films that us old folk used to watch back in the day on our standard def DVDs because they were the cutting edge at the time. What was your favourite thing about 1996?
Oh no, that's too dark. I was going to say not being alive yet, but that's awful. Sorry. Well, this film came out, which was pretty nice.
Nice. Yeah, we've got nothing in common. I'm a creepy old man now. Yeah, no, this film is fantastic, and we talk about it all the time. The likes of Fight Club and The Matrix, there's a lot of game changers, and Scream belongs right up there because it made the genre stronger, but also change.
It's really what the genre needed to sort of continue as a good genre and not something that's just been done over and over again.
And Game Changers is a great segue for the next film on your list. You have picked a film from the grand old year of 1979 that you said you remember very fondly. We are talking about Alien.
Yes.
Why did you pick this film?
So many reasons. I mean, mostly, like, who has seen this film and didn't at least appreciate it for being just a really good sci-fi horror movie? For me, it was sort of my, I guess, introduction into sci-fi aside from Star Wars, which I grew up watching, and it was so different from Star Wars because where Star Wars feels, I don't want to say cartoonish, but like very fantasy.
It's an adventure film.
This feels realistic, which is really weird to say because there's aliens, but, it feels so realistic. You can genuinely believe these characters exist. They show a camaraderie between the crew before everything goes to hell. And it's just really cool. I love the opening shot of the Nostromo where all the halls are empty because everyone's still in cryo. And then there's those two perpetual motion drinking birds on the table. And I think it's just such a clever way to show that even though no one's awake, time is passing. And I just think it's so clever. And that opening shot really shows how vast the ship is. And then in the final act of the film, the ship feels so small.
It gets claustrophobic.
Yeah, and I think that's so skillful.
And I reckon Aliens is, like everyone knows, directed by Ridley Scott, is one of the best examples of what I call a slow burn.
Yes.
Because it's not your Event Horizon or even the Alien sequels. It is, this is the pace we've set. We're not moving faster than we've set. And it builds a sense of dread, and it is such an effective film. And like you say, you get the opening establishing shots of what a massive ship they are on. and by the end of it, it feels like a 5x5 box.
It's just masterful cinematography to be able to achieve that after establishing it as huge. And it's just really incredible to watch.
And because I'm a fat guy and I lived in the 1990s, one of my favourite directors of all time is James Cameron. So can we give some love to Aliens, or is that not your thing?
I do like Aliens. I do, and that was also a contender for this. But, like, obviously you have to go with the original. Ellen Ripley is such a huge inspiration for me. So, any of the films she's in are pretty good.
And it's also a great example of the amount of memes that come out that are like, finally a strong female lead character. And it's like, shut up. Like, we've had one for a very long time.
Yes.
Not that we don't need more,
No,
but I just mean...
There's always room for more.
But stop acting like...
But Ripley is just something else. Sigourney Weaver was incredible in this role.
And if anyone has a vacuum that's not working, I suggest getting a copy of Aliens 3 and putting it inside, because it sucks so much that it will fix your vacuum.
I was really wondering where that was going. That was incredible.
Thank you. I believe that is your list.
Yeah, I think we did it.
Nicely done. Ultimately, pretend you have control of the rest of 2020.
All right.
How would you be spending it?
Well, the new releases would be out, so we'd be, at the cinema watching movies.
Be watching one of your like a sequel to Big Mama's House or something along those lines that you're a massive fan of?
Mm-hmm. No, I would just really love to have a horror movie night with my friends at this point. Be just, a really nice thing.
Yeah. Now, if you had to suggest, not on your list, a really trashy horror film, what do you think you would suggest?
Really trashy?
Talk about something that even you find you have to be in the mood to watch.
Oh my god, I don't know. I watch bad horror films as a hobby just to see how much I can withstand. Attack of the Killer Donuts is pretty much the worst thing I've ever seen, so maybe go watch that. Evil Bong's really fun. If you like stoner humor, it's really fun. I actually enjoyed that one, even though it's not a good film, but it's fun on a bun.
I've been enjoying all the direct to streaming stuff lately. I'd written a lot of it off, but I checked out The Babysitter.
I love
and
that.
Better Watch Out. There's a whole heap of new age horror movies that I just completely written off as garbage that I've been revisiting. I'm like, these are great movies.
The Babysitter was so campy and fun and such a good homage to sort of 80s horror. I think it's really good.
Have you seen Better Watch Out?
No, I haven't.
That I think you would absolutely love. I don't want to give too much away, but please check that out if you can. What was the other one that I watched recently that I was really impressed with? Ready or Not.
I loved that.
That was fantastic.
It was so good.
It was, you could tell that someone had watched The Purge and they're like,
yes,
I can do this but better.
But you're aware of how huge that mansion is, and it's sort of the same thing with Alien where you're in hide and seek and you're hiding and it feels so tiny and claustrophobic, and just there's not really a moment where you're not kind of tense because you really want her to not die.
The film we didn't cover, which we completely forgot, Cabin in the Woods.
Oh my god, how could we forget that? Okay.
I didn't forget, you forgot it.
You told me we finished my list and I was like, okay, host.
This is an amazing film that manages to pretty much take credit for the storyline of every other horror film ever.
Which is an achievement.
100%.
If you haven't seen this, don't get it spoiled for you, because I think it's just so crucial that you go in knowing nothing about it.
100%. That's exactly how I saw it the first time.
But it is probably, and this is sad because we forgot, probably my favorite film of all time.
Wow.
I think it's so good. It's pre-Thor, Chris Hemsworth, if that's, that was enough motivation for my mum to watch it. Hi, Mum. She has a big crush on him. And it's just another genre subverting film that sort of explains all the horror tropes that you know and hate and love. And it's really fantastic.
And I love very much, like we were talking about Megan Fox being the forefront of the marketing. That's pretty much Hemsworth's role in this one.
Yes.
Because it was made and sat on the shelf for about 2 or 3 years. Couldn't get released. And it wasn't until between Hemsworth and the dude that wrote all the Avengers stuff.
Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon. It wasn't until they were on like an absolute roll that the studio's like, we need to release this film. Yeah, don't want to talk too much about the plot because it is so good to go into it not knowing about it. But yeah, what a recommendation.
They used 200 gallons of blood in this film, and if that's not enough motivation to watch it, I don't know what is.
And a beautiful mix, which you don't get in modern horror, of practical and CGI. So.
The director wanted as much practical things to happen as possible, so they had a massive studio, and it probably will never happen in film ever again, because he realized pretty quickly that CGI exists to make his life so much easier.
And like you mentioned earlier, it would be a great jump-off point for like a series where it could be like an anthology series where every episode is a different scenario set up by the Cabin in the Woods.
The creature design in the film is gorgeous, and there's so many of them, and it would just be very cool to see more of them outside of the cube storage unit.
Just say that you want a merman film and get it over with.
I do. That was the best kill in the film. Tell me I'm wrong.
Not at all. You are completely right. So that is all the time we have for this evening on DVG. Why don't, once again, you let everyone know where they can check out what you're doing?
So you can find me on Instagram at villain_visage, on Twitter at Villain Visage, on TikTok at Villain Visage. Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations on 3 years of DVG.
Thank you very much. It's been very fun. Don't forget, you can check out what we've got going on by jumping on our social media, Dave's Video Graveyard at WOWFM on both Instagram and Facebook. That's all the time we have for. Make sure you stick around because Krez is in the studio and it's going to be a good night. This is DVG.